Live music is much more than just hearing a band perform their craft in person. It's an experience. And as time has gone on, live albums have not gotten as much attention as they used to. This video is going to talk about 10 amazing live albums. Whether it was stripped out unplugged sessions or performances in front of thousands, live music albums have always been a big part of rock history. There are many to choose from over the years, and after asking patrons and Discord members, here is a list of both obvious choices and a few surprises. This is not a top 10, no rankings, it's just a list. Also, if your favorite album isn't talked about this time, leave a comment and let everyone know what a great live album is, and if this video gets enough attention and requests for a part 2, I'll come back to the comment section of this video and look at the suggestions. No further explanation needed. You know how these videos work. Let's get to it. For the heavier side of live music, Slipknot has always been one of the best live metal shows in the world for many years now, and they've been doing it well for a long time. 9.0 Live was released back in 2005, the year after Volume 3 The Subliminal Verses was released, and catapulted the band into household name status. This live album celebrated many of those songs along with previous big tracks and further cemented what we know now, that Slipknot really was and still is a big deal. 9.0 Live is a collection of many songs recorded from numerous concerts in the US, Japan, and Singapore. The live double album included many deep cuts that were rarely performed live until they recorded specific songs just for this collection, including a few tracks that were never performed live ever until being recorded for 9.0 Live, like Skin Ticket. While the recorded tracks are piecemealed from different concerts, everything feels seamless in the flow. Clown said in an interview describing the process for recording it all that every band member had many microphones hanging around them, so the band put in 115% to make sure everything was perfect for specific songs as opposed to their standard 110%. That's almost Scott Steiner levels of math, but not quite. This isn't the only live album Slipknot would release live, but it does feel like it's the favorite from Slipknot fans, and I totally get why. The dedication to have many songs included that are rarely played live, and having so much of that catalog at the time included, shows how Slipknot really wanted to give their fans something special in 9.0 Live. Some fans only play the hits live. Slipknot wanted to go all out and give deeper cuts some attention. Hearing the banner anthems like Before I Forget and Wait and Bleed are always a blast to hear live, and 9.0 has something for every maggot out there. The Cure will forever be one of those bands who can do no wrong in a live setting, and in 1993's simply titled Show, recorded in Detroit, Robert Smith and company took their already high standard to the next level with that performance. At 73 minutes, you get a collection of their biggest songs, as well as some rarely played gems that fans of The Cure scream over. Literally, after almost every track, the crowd in Detroit just loses their mind. At the close of tracks like Lullaby and In Between Days, it sounds like everyone just watched their favorite team win the championship. It's a celebration for The Cure. The performance was recorded over 2 nights in mid-1992, and it captures the vibrant side of The Cure's music as the set had many of the more moving and lively hits. Smith sounded great, and some of the guitar and synth work hits every nostalgic brainwave you could have. Ending the entire set with End puts the goth cherry on top also. The Cure is one of those bands that's fun to see in performance over the decades because no matter how they look, they still sound amazing in every single concert over time. Show, which, again, what a great name, captures the spirit of fans who love The Cure and the real sound of the band perfectly. If you've never seen The Cure live and they are not on your bucket list of bands, they should be. Listening to Show from the early 90s will give you a great idea of what they could create in a live setting, and in many ways still can. Grab some all-black clothing, light some incense, and play Show loud. Of all the things 2020 took away from us, the canceling of Rage Against the Machine's reunion tour might have been one of the more personal blows. If ever there was a year for Rage to make a return, it's 2020, and anyone who has ever seen the band live or heard live at the Grand Olympic Auditorium can attest to just how big of a deal Rage Against the Machine is as a live force. Performed and recorded in the year 2000, this set in Los Angeles was on the at the time final tour before Zach left the group, and the other members would then work with Chris Cornell to make Audio Slave. On this live album, you hear Rage Against the Machine in their elements. Over 70 minutes of the most energetic and empowering tracks from the band's discography are covered. Everything from Tom Morello getting crazy with the guitar effects to Zach trying to incite a riot is captivating. At one point, he tells the crowd to set it off at the opening of Guerrilla Radio, and you can hear the intensity come through on the recording track. This live album wasn't released until years after the performance, so it went a bit under the radar by rage standards, but it still holds up for many people, and if anything, it proves how wild Tom Morello can be when left to his own creativity and without any restrictions. The man will never get enough credit for being one of the most inventive guitarists ever. I get Rage Against the Machine is not everyone's thing due to political stances, but regardless of how you feel about their message, it can't be denied how talented the band is in a live setting, and live at the Grand Olympic Auditorium proves that. Me trying to explain how big of a deal Pink Floyd is and how they are live is clearly not going to do justice to the band or the sound, but that won't stop me from trying to talk about the live double album Pulse from 1995. Recorded the previous year on the Division Bell tour in Europe, Pink Floyd compiled almost 2.5 hours of songs, and this is a Pink Floyd diehard's dream. The breathtaking opening of Shine On You Crazy Diamond for over 13 minutes is enough to hook you for the entire ride. So much is covered from Pink Floyd's decades worth of material, and it's all done with high-end production and design. Hearing the crowd through different shows in Europe whistle and cheer somehow made the high points of songs like Another Brick in the Wall and Money even bigger. Keep in mind that this was decades after the heights of Pink Floyd, and it was after Waters had left, and Pulse still holds up as an amazing live album and comprehensive collection of live music for the band. I do feel that almost every album Pink Floyd made is timeless in a sense that it holds up to every generation, and Pulse helped prove that back in the mid-90s. You hear some of the songs and the many solos involved on Pulse, and it makes you realize why Pink Floyd stood the test of time. Many people consider this like the swan song for the group, and even though there was The Endless River, I do feel this is the perfect chapter to end things as a live album with Pulse. Pulse is the perfect way to remember a group like Pink Floyd after their heyday, and it's worth setting hours aside to hear it all. It's over 25 years since the Division Bell tour, and Pulse still comes in as steady and vivid as ever. When I started asking people for live album suggestions to include on the video, several people suggested Disturbed's Live at Red Rocks album from 2016. I have never been that into Disturbed, so I was a bit confused by everyone's instant praise for this one, but once I sat down to finally hear it, yeah, I agree, it's quite impressive. David Draymond does a great job hyping up the crowd, and every track totaling over an hour of music is well mixed and encapsulates what Disturbed does best: rile people up with their music. Just about every big hit from the band going back to The Sickness, all the way up to the hits from Immortalized, including the famous cover of The Sound of Silence, is featured. Anyone that has seen Disturbed live knows that they give their audience exactly what they want and expect in a show, and then add a few surprises with wild extended plays, medleys, and Draymond getting the crowd to chant along. Put all of that in the middle of Colorado, and Disturbed really surprised everyone, including people who aren't huge fans of the band before the set. 2015 and 2016 was a huge resurgence for Disturbed with their comeback at the time and all the attention they got through a platinum-selling album and a Grammy nomination for The Sound of Silence, so I have to give credit to Disturbed for knocking out of the park with a killer live album at the end of that Immortalized cycle and continuing to give their fans something special. Their screaming, chanting, great-sounding rhythm sections, and Draymond's powerful voice is booming through the entire show. From the opening of 10,000 Fists to Down with the Sickness, Disturbed really played the game perfectly with this Red Rocks recording. Speaking of Red Rocks, during the long hiatus of A Perfect Circle and in the middle of the long break between album releases, Billy Howardell got Maynard James Keenan to stop playing in his vineyard to do some select shows performing full albums live. This all led to one of the best Red Rock performances I have ever heard in the Stone and Echo back in 2011, and later mastered and released in 2013 on CD and DVD. Stone and Echo is a full set with live versions of each A Perfect Circle album performed live up until 2011, but it's the actual live Stone and Echo performance at Red Rocks that still gives me chills. Billy Howardell and James Iha were in their element, and Maynard James Keenan sounds as fluid and powerful as ever. The heavier moments stand out, but it's the more sublime and moving tracks, including Orestes and the stellar cover of When the Levee Breaks, that makes Stone and Echo worth seeking out. Every time I hear this live set, it makes me wish I was there in person. A Perfect Circle is one of my all-time favorite bands, so I'm going to have obvious bias, but even with that, I can't recommend Stone and Echo enough. The mixing on the live album is great with the audio, and you could really feel that atmosphere from Red Rocks that night in this album. I don't know what it is about that venue in Colorado, but wow, they get some of the best performances ever out of people. It's another reason to see live bands when you can, because you never know when they'll stop playing together or take a hiatus for several years. Whether it's the heavier or softer style from A Perfect Circle that you prefer, Stone and Echo will deliver on what you're looking for. There are many amazing MTV Unplugged albums that could be talked about, and if I do another one of these videos, I'll talk about more, but the ones that always stuck out in my mind was from July of '96, when MTV really gave the spotlight for these Unplugged sessions. Bands like Alice in Chains proved just how far ahead they were in talent when compared to their peers. Not only was this one of the final performances from Alice in Chains with Lane Staley, but it was also at the time the band's first performance together in well over a year. On top of that, Staley was under the weather while performing, and they still made something this good. The band walked on stage one by one, went right into Nutshell, and everyone live was instantly entranced. This Unplugged album is over 70 minutes long, and considering all the previously mentioned factors, it's amazing at how smooth this live album ended up, and it still stands as one of the best Unplugged sessions ever. The album also includes additional songs that were recorded but not shown on the MTV special, and many of the biggest hits are covered in a special stripped-down way. I get that most people are going to have their favorite Unplugged sessions from MTV, and if I do a part 2 of these videos for live albums, then I'll probably have more Unplugged sessions to talk about. But as for me, the session from Alice in Chains is my favorite. For so much turmoil and after the height of grunge had ended, Alice in Chains sat together and reminded everyone just how fantastic they were, and reminded people of the magic Lane and Jerry could make. It's a nostalgia trip for some and a tearjerker for others, but regardless of how you enjoy this Unplugged session from Alice in Chains, I feel it's worth coming back to every now and then to relive something special. If I can be my own. Many of you might be saying I picked an obvious choice, but there's no way I could make a video like this without including Russian Rio. Performed and recorded back in 2002 in Brazil, one of Canada's greatest exports performed to one of their largest audiences ever and made a 3-disc album set that still serves as one of Rush's biggest accomplishments, which is saying a lot considering the many live Rush albums that are out there. This live album wasn't released until almost a year after the performance, finally coming in October 2003 due to tons of technical issues in recording and mixing. The vocal track is a bit lighter at times than it probably should be, but it's all the instrument work and hearing the crowd go insane and sing along that make Russian Rio worth seeking out. Russian Rio embodies the spirit of live music and captures the feeling of what a live album should be. I could add another 5 minutes to this video about just how good individual tracks are on Russian Rio, like The Spirit of Radio and Working Man, and even just the set opening with Tom Sawyer. This is every Rush fan's dream. Listening to some of Russian Rio live and hearing the crowd go insane for every song is intense, but it's hearing the instrument performance and the music from Rush on every song and how it just comes in so well, and that impresses me every time. At the time, this was roughly the band's 30th anniversary, and they were still blowing everyone away. Rush fans, prog fans, live music fans in general can admire Russian Rio for many reasons. Time stood still during this performance in the early 2000s, and many years later, it still serves as an amazing live album. Arguably one of the most successful live albums of all time comes from the Bay Area and was a breath of fresh air for every Metallica fan in the late 90s. Recorded with the San Francisco Symphony at the Berkeley Theater, Metallica delivered something special in 1999 in remaking all of the band's biggest hits from the 80s and 90s and adding an amazing symphony with them. And being completely honest, the reason this live album is amazing is not because of Metallica, it's because of the San Francisco Symphony. They added something unique to the classic thrash songs as well as improving some of those radio-tastic Metallica rock tracks from the mid-90s. From Master of Puppets to Fuel, the symphony made everything exciting and refreshing for the band. There are also surprises and big moments like No Leaf Clover, which is still great to hear for something different from Metallica, but it's the 90s era Metallica songs that were made better by the symphony and the biggest songs from the 80s that made S&M worth seeking out. I get that the Load and Reload era get a lot of flack from Metallica and metal fans in general. I've said my piece many times, but I would suggest listening to some of those tracks on S&M to get something better out of those songs. This was also the last Metallica album Jason would perform on, and it's a great way to go out in my opinion. This was a well thought out and impressive 2-night event released into a live album, and here's hoping S&M 2 has the same magic that the original had. Metallica may be the name on the album, but it's the San Francisco Symphony that makes the album worth hearing. It's over 2 hours of great music that any music fan can get behind. Before we get to the last live album to talk about, please hit the like button below if you've been enjoying this video so far. It helps a ton to get this video pushed to the YouTube algorithm and shown to people who aren't subscribed. Thank you. Alright, let's talk about one more live album until a part 2 is made. In July of 1986, Queen recorded one of the biggest shows of their career at Wembley Stadium. A massive amount of mastering and remastering was done for years, and there was many delays for the final release, part of which being due to the news of Mercury's illness that was discovered in '87. Freddie Mercury passed in November of 1991, and Live at Wembley Stadium was released 6 months later in '92. This is as much of a tribute album as it is a live album. Hearing Freddie Mercury talk about how Queen will never break up and having fun with the crowd is awesome, and the massive crowd clapping along with many songs and not timing it right with the echo, and the rhythm sounds like something that would make it weird, but somehow it just makes the experience more amazing. You can feel the excitement and how much the crowd loves the show and the performances of Under Pressure and Bohemian Rhapsody, while everyone sings along. Queen had everyone in the palm of their hands. It's as much of a tribute to Freddie Mercury as it is an amazing live album, and just about every Queen fan is aware of this, so retreading the high points bit by bit won't be much information to many, but for those who haven't heard it, try looking it up online, picking out your favorite Queen songs, and hearing it performed live in front of roughly 700,000 people. Give or take. Ryan May proved why he's one of the best guitarists ever. Freddie Mercury was in his element, and it's hard not to think about how amazing it must have been to see this live at Wembley. This is an album for all us lovely, crazy people out there who love Queen, and it's a great way to remember a legend. And that was a look at 10 amazing live albums. Know of a live album that wasn't covered and you want to see on a part 2 video? Leave a comment and let everyone know. Big thanks to my patrons and a special thanks to Brandon Barenfeld, Chris Doman, and Dom Smith. You can have a say in upcoming videos and get other perks by supporting Rocked on Patreon. Click on the link in the video description for more info. Please subscribe to stay notified on upcoming videos. You can check out my concert photography on Instagram and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.